You know, he's really he's shameless in intellectual argument. He's absolutely without character, a moral foundation, or even intellectual substance.
Welcome back to the Getting Lit podcast. Last week we talked about Max Easton's new novel, Paradise Estate, with the one and only Max Easton. And now Max is joining me for part 2 of this little duology. And we're going to be talking about the 20 Days of Turin, which is a novel that Max selected and posted down to me very, very kindly. So the 20 Days of Turin. In Italian, Le 20 giornate di Torino, inchiesta di fine secolo, I think the subtitle was, which is what does that mean? It means like inquiry into the end of the century or something like that, I think.
Yeah.
I don't think they put the subtitle in the English translation.
No, and I feel like that this subtitle is kind of important too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because
I'm sure.
we'll get to it. So this is a really strange book. And before we get into like kind of summarizing and things like this, I kind of asked you this at the end of the last episode, but like, what were your sort of, I don't know, motivations or reasons for like setting this text on our little reading list? Dr. Easton.
I am a doctor.
Professor Easton.
Professor me.
Yeah.
I had a inkling that it would be a good book. Because my friend Jonah from New Orleans just like posted about it. And he's got very, very good taste in books and music. And just the small parts that I kind of had read about it, I just like had this feeling that you would enjoy it too. So yeah, the reason I said it, I think I was just like intrigued by the concept. And we talked about doing the episode before I even got a copy of the book because it's pretty hard to find in Australia and it cost a fair bit to get it sent down here. I found like a new used copy type thing.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I haven't read a ghost story. I guess it's a ghost story in some ways.
It sort of is, yeah.
Yeah, but I haven't read like a horror novel for a very long time.
Mm.
And I grew up reading like, do you remember those? My dad gave me a copy of like this book that he had when he was a kid. It was like, do you remember like Stories for Boys?
No, what's that?
They're just like they're like pulpy type books, and it was like, this is what YA has replaced.
Oh, okay.
Like Stories for Boys, and it's like scary shit, and like ghosts and that kind of thing. And it really brought me back to being like this 12-year-old reading these like 60s era pulp horror stories.
Yeah, I think my kind of horror background was reading like Stephen King, Dean Koontz, Anne Rice and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And then I kind of graduated to Clive Barker, who I love. I've got to do an episode on one of his books, or many of his books, because I love him. But yeah, it is a kind of ghost story. It's sort of horror. It's almost like Lovecraft meets Kafka. It's like it's like a weird combination. So basically it follows a guy in Turin who is nameless. He's the narrator, basically. Basically he is investigating a series of really gruesome and unexplained events, murders that kind of occurred before he's telling his story. And throughout the investigation, it's set up like a series of interviews in a way, at the start anyway, where he's like interviewing witnesses and people who have various bits of evidence that shine light on whether the fuck happened, because it's such a mystery. But basically the city of Turin, there's a lot of insomniacs, walking around, and there are these entities that are also walking around, and these entities select people and murder them, but in a very novel way, in that they grab them by the legs and like bash them against things as if like the humans themselves are like cudgels or clubs or something. And then yeah, so basically it's just this guy trying to unravel the mystery of what this is. The background to this as well is there's this, which is, I'll be interested to hear what you think about this, like the concept of the library, which for me, which a lot of people have said, is a kind of very eerie prognostication of, social media, because basically the library is this, it was a wing of a hospital where like lots of different people from the community would submit diary entries, which were like confessions and things like that, and people would take them and read them. And so it was about like this culture of confession that we now have in social media, but it was like in a more material form. And that seems almost tangential to the story, the mystery at large, but there are sort of like interesting kind of like a cross hatching there with what's going on in the story. But so that's an element to it as well that we kind of just need to flag for later. But yeah, in terms of the book, it's not, to me, it's not one of those like straightforward Stephen King sort of like the supernatural invades the kind of material physical world or whatever. Although it is that, it's kind of like more subtle. And so where it starts is with this mystery, trying to work out what happens. But where it ends, where it takes you is like, you will not expect it. Like, it's just like, it's just such a weird, dreadful in the sense of like so much dread in the ending.
Yeah.
Like, I felt sick reading this novel, like literally physically ill. Like,
yeah.
And that never happens to me. Like I've got a very strong stomach. And so, yeah, I was just, and it's not so much the goriness and stuff like that. It doesn't even go into that much detail about like, you know, the people getting fucking smashed against statues and walls and stuff like that. It's more this like atmospheric sense of, ambient dread that is just like, it's sickening.
Yeah. Yeah, it's wild, eh? Like I was there was a point where like my partner was sort of suggesting I stop reading it for a little while.
Oh, really?
I was just getting a little bit like, you know, like I'd be reading it and I'd be like deathly silent. And usually like we'll like have half a conversation while I'm reading a book or whatever in bed or whatever, but it's just like tense up and reading it and just kind of like going up to get my glass of water without saying anything and just like, yeah, because like paranoia is such a big part of the book too, I think, like suspicion and yeah, everything is kind of, yeah, like I feel like a big part of it is just like no one's talking about this period, but everyone knows that it happened.
Yeah, it made me feel like I needed to go online and start schizo posting. Like it's that, it's that sort of like, the paranoia. But yeah, it is like a very visceral. People overuse visceral, but like the reading experience itself is very visceral. So it's like, I was having like, this never happens to me. I'm a very like healthy person. I had like, my stomach was turning literally. I had I had heart palpitations.
Yeah.
And it was just this fucking book.
Do you remember which part of the book that
just all of it? Like, so the first chapter is like, so I read this in 2 sittings and I read the first chapter in 1 sitting. I had to go away and like do something. And then I came back and read the rest of the book all in one go. And I think that was kind of a mistake. Because I was just like, oh, I can't do this, but I have to for the pod.
Yeah. But it's good, like, because I read
it's good. I'm
the
not
first
planning.
one like all chopped up into bits, but the second reading I read more or less in 1 sitting. The effect of that, like, kind of the next bit and the next bit, the next bit, the next bit, and like feeling just with that little bit, you know, like the extra awareness you have on the second way through. Like that was really fun. Like feeling that kind of unpeel.
Yeah, and it's not even, like I said, it's not even like gory detail, violent although there is some of that, but it's more like it's just the suggestiveness. It's like the cliche that all good horror is about suggesting things rather than showing it. It's always way more confronting if it's suggested rather than shown.
Yeah.
But yeah, I loved it. I think it's a very successful horror novel, but it's also much more than that. It's very short and compact as well. Like, I think it's only about, it's probably considered technically a novella, right? Like,
surely,
yeah,
like 130 pages or something.
Yeah. So in terms of like, people have like said a lot of things about this book in terms of like what it ultimately means. So one of the big things is that it apparently references the years of lead in Italy, which was I didn't really know much about this. I'm a bad Italian, but I'm an Italian Australian, so I wouldn't know anything about this. But basically it's a series. The years of lead were like a series of basically terrorist attacks from far left and far right groups in Italy in the 60s to I think the 80s. So basically a lot of like political terrorism, people getting murdered, things getting blown up and shit. And so the book is said to be kind of inspired by that in terms of like this overwhelming sense of dread and violence could just spark up at any time. And the kind of, I don't know if this is accurate, but like the portrayal of the citizenry just sort of like going about their business as all this sort of kind of happens around them. And so that plays into like apparently the social commentary of what's going on in the book. I don't know. There's a lot of like political, ideological stuff that I think is, to my reading, and maybe this is just my ignorance of Italian politics, because I really don't know that much about it. But I feel like that kind of cheapens it a little bit for me. Like, I feel like this is dealing with much more, I don't know, metaphysical, transcendental things than stuff like that.
I think there's like an allegory there because it was like published in 1977.
Mm-hmm.
Like at the like sort of I guess towards the end of this kind of like culture of like this group of like the left wing terrorists kind of like killing a judge or killing the ex-prime minister and killing cops, that kind of thing, and then the right wing kind of staging a bombing and then pinning it on one of the Red Brigades, and everyone sort of knows that he didn't do it, but they kind of accept it, sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
But I think Giorgio di Maria, the writer, was like of the far left, but in a period of time where in literature world, like he still spoke to and hung out with people who were like, had a rightish sensibility, or like his politics were sort of compartmentalized from his writing and from his day-to-day life. I think there's a translator. I can't remember his name. I can't remember his name, but he made a note of this in like the foreword at some point, where it's just like a very specific period of time where like all these things could kind of coexist. And
that's interesting actually, because I didn't know that about him. I mean, I knew he was some form of lefty, but what I find interesting about, if you want to get into like the, down to the kind of more worldly aspects and the readings of it, like the theories about what it all means, man. I feel like, given the context of, that the years of lead stuff, what you said just then in terms of his compartmentalization of ideology and politics versus art, I feel like one reading of this is that the entities themselves are kind of ideology, like the concept of ideology, in that, because I think a lot of people, when they think of ideology, they think that it's just a synonym for beliefs. But for me, like, it's always meant like a framework for beliefs.
Yes.
Which means like, your beliefs are shaped by this particular framework, and that's how you sort of see the world or whatever. But there's something inhuman about that. There's something inhuman about all ideologies, because it's like, you can't have individual beliefs. Your beliefs must be filtered through this framework. And so I think there's something there to that maybe he's getting at. And like that is interesting that you say that about him, because I feel like he would be the sort of person who would be able to sort of play with that a little bit, you know?
Yeah.
Which is not to say, this is not that sort of thing like, you know, I'm not saying he's like, both sides are bad, man, like that sort of thing. But more like, and it's not even about sides, it's less about politics as such and more about ideology, and ideology being this thing that is essentially, I think ideologies are basically a stand-in for the religious mindset that we've sort of lost in terms of its dominance, where like ideologies are kind of a secular place to put the fervor that used to go into religion, basically. And so it frames people's beliefs about the world, but it also uses people. And that's like the key, like metaphor that I think is very important for the book.
Yeah, definitely. I think like, I really feel like those entities are like this, because the entities like appear but aren't really seen, or if they are seen, they're not talked about by people in the city. So they're kind of like, to me, like I kind of picture them as this kind of like undercurrent, like almost like they didn't exist except when they kind of showed up to like have these shows of strength against each other, almost. Because there's like all those bits where it's like the bit where he goes to get a haircut, like he goes to the local barber. And it's like, that monument wasn't there before. Like the monuments have been switched. So it's like, to me, it was like this deep history, like this deep historical battle between these entities. You can like pick up the monuments in the piazza and switch them and like move them over to the side a little bit. And the barber's just kind of like not commenting on it. It's like, well, that doesn't concern me.
That's true. That's
just cutting hair.
That's true for totally get that for your point. I would make another point about that as well, which is, this comes from my experience from going to Italy. Like, for the first time, I was just like, how are you people just going about your lives while like the Colosseum is just there?
Yeah.
Did you have that when you first went over? I did.
I did. Yeah.
What the fuck are you doing?
Yeah, 100%. It's so fun.
But yeah, it's like the same. It's that same like impulse. I think the barber represented that. I'm just doing my job, man. Like I don't notice anything. I didn't see anything. But yeah,
I feel like ideology points. Like I think that's what makes this book really good. It's not like, even, you know, it's not being sold as like this great Marxist novel, or it's not being sold as this great exploration of ideology or anything, which is good because it's just like being presented for comment, kind of. But it's like almost much worse because it's like published in 2017 and almost, which is like very heightened period of like social media is broken, the algorithm is broken, and it's like this like Trumpist mania. It's like in this age of like, I think on the back it was like, in an age of like lone wolf terrorism inspired by Donald Trump and this kind of thing. It's just like, oh fuck, like if it was translated to English any other year, it would have been, you know, it was just kind of really misconstrued. Because it wasn't really about any of that. Like it really is just feels like we live on the top of all this history and these like historical events for hundreds and hundreds, thousands of years kind of inform the forces that surround us in the form of these entities. And the common person on the street ends up being a victim of these like faceless forces which are in opposition to each other.
And this is the thing as well with Italian literature post fascism, basically, is that like it's always about fascism. It's just like,
Yeah,
if
yeah,
there's anything like threatening or whatever, like anything that's written in Italy after the Second World War, it's about fascism. It's
yeah,
like, come
yeah,
on. Like,
yeah. It's about other things. It's about people. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. So, and that's such a really reductive, like basic bitch sort of reading of it.
Mm.
But yeah, like, yeah. So I thought that sense of him talking about these things, the point about history is good too. Like this idea of like a layered history, and maybe these things have always been with us. But then you get the sense that like it kind of selected Turin. I think there's a sort of throwaway line as well where he says like, "Oh, these entities are testing out things in Turin,
Yeah.
because it's one of the more remote cities in Italy." And I like put remote in quotes because
Yeah.
like remote in Italy is like what, an hour away from the
Yeah.
nearest city.
Yeah. But I guess I don't know what the train network was like in the late 70s either. It's like trying to get a feel of what Turin felt like then. But there was also a part, I think, well, because they were kind of like postulating when he talks, I think it's the attorney or the guy. Yeah, so like the driving force is this like amateur sleuth almost, which I really liked that it wasn't like, I don't know if I've read this that much before because, it's this kind of thing ends up being a detective novel or it's like seeking who killed my daughter or something. It's purely out of curiosity. And it's like this guy who was sort of around is like, he knows that everyone knows about this period, but no one will talk about it. And he's just kind of like, because like, I'm sure like you're like this as a writer, like when you're interested in something and you start like digging through internet archives and you're like kind of looking for things, like that feeling of just like, I'm just obsessed with this fucking thing. And I want to get to the bottom of it and no one's giving me the answer I want. Like I love that as a driving force for a book. But at some point he's talking to either his attorney friend or the person his attorney friend puts him onto.
Giuffreda.
Giuffreda, yeah. And the tapes.
Yeah, the tapes.
Like the tapes.
That scene was fucking. This is the thing as well. It's terrifying. It starts out. This is the same with when you realize that the entities are using humans as like clubs.
Yeah.
You first read it and it's like, oh, that's pretty funny. But then like this is perhaps how that sense of dread gets developed because it's like you first read it and that's kind of ridiculous and surreal or whatever. But then like he just keeps unpacking it and then it gets more and more horrifying because it starts out from this sort of like ridiculous looking, like in your mind's eye it looks ridiculous, but then that adds to its dread. And it's the same with the recordings. Like the recordings sound like he even puts this is probably a translation thing, but it's probably in the Italian as well, puts like the stupid sounds they make at the start before they start actually speaking sentences. And you're like, lol. Like this is just like this is just like nonsense. And then like oh no, they're actually speaking, and it becomes like terrifying.
Yeah. And then like at some point that's a great scene. Like I love that scene. And then there's the realize, like when they start talking about it, it's like they speak Italian. So, because they're kind of postulating, it's like, where do these monsters come from? Like where are they? And it's like a really specific, like European phenomenon. It's like, well, they could be speaking any language. They could be from anywhere, but no, like they're specifically chosen Turin and they speak Italian. So we made them. Like this is a specific local phenomenon. But it's so much bigger than Turin, obviously. It's like these like weird, ghastly entities like beating people against each other kind of thing.
Yeah, you've been to Turin?
Yeah, I went there last year for like a little bit under a week.
Yeah, I've never been to Turin, even though I have lots of family there.
Yeah, really?
They got really butthurt at me for not visiting, but like, but it was just like, it was just not in it was, there's so much to do when you go to Europe and stuff. It was just like, I don't want to go to a factory town.
Yeah, it's really hard, especially if you got like how long is your holiday? Like
exactly.
You're there for 6 months.
Yeah. But yeah, so what did you get in terms of the way that it was conveyed in the story?
From Turin?
Yeah.
don't know. Don't
I
have
mean,
an answer to that question.
Yeah, it's not really. It's one of those things where the sense of place is kind of displaced because it's like the sense of place is conveyed by this eerie, ambient kind of terror, the paranoid like elements of it that really colors the landscape. But at the same time, it does seem like a little bit of a love letter to Turin as well. Like it's really a city he has a lot of affection for.
It does seem to be like maybe something's missed 50 years later in a way too. It's like, because that period in Turin like was really famous for like lots of Southerners moving in the 60s, 50s, 60s, I think, early 70s. Like lots of Southerners moving to Turin to work in factories, like for the Fiat factory and stuff. And a lot of that sort of agitation and violence came from like factory strikes and the response to that and the response to that. So by the time of the late 70s, a lot of that had filtered out and the Fiat factory wasn't so strong anymore. And so I feel like there's a lot of like vacancies in buildings and in the streets and lots of kind of like that sort of the way they talk about the people after the 20 Days of Turin, like after all this violence and they're kind of like going about their day is kind of this like absence of something that was happening before, or this hive of activity, or this like town that's been left to float almost.
And yeah, that's a key point as well, because if you, I don't know how much tourism was in Torino, but I would assume it's not as a popular tourist destination as like Rome or Florence or Milan or something. So yeah, I can get that sense would definitely be there because it was such an industrial kind of city. And like I said, it is kind of out of the way. So like tourists aren't going to go there. It's, I don't even know if it's on the fast train line, is it? Or you have to change or something.
Yeah, it is. But they're like, because when I went there, started in London, went to Turin, and then went on to Milan and then down to Rome. So you can get like a pretty quick train from Turin to Milan. But I didn't get the sense that it continued through, but maybe it did. But
yeah, so
it feels a little bit shut off in the corner.
Yeah, and that's the thing that in this book, like at the time as well, like obviously Italy was a very different place. Like, you know, I mean, even at this point, it was still recovering from the Second World War. Like, people don't realize, like, if you go to Italy now, you know, it's basically a kind of service economy full of tourism. And that's all it is. But like, even up until like the 80s and 90s, it was like they were still recovering from the Second World War. Like, Italy got smashed, like buildings leveled, like they had to like rebuild a whole heap of shit. And that's why our ancestors came here, I guess.
Yeah. That's why they got the fuck out. But now we're all going back and they're like, wow.
But
me.
Yes. Wow. 100 guys in trench coats selling me like balloons and stupid flying planes and watches.
Sick.
But yeah, you wouldn't have had all that back then. Like, still would have been like very, God, almost 19th century still, like in terms of the way things were working. Obviously, there were cars and stuff like that. But even today, actually, you go to some places in Italy and it's just like it's just different to, you know, Anglosphere countries and stuff like that. You know,
there's kind of like this delayed feeling, like it's trying to like catch up and but it's like that country is so racked with debt, like to the EU and that kind of stuff, and it's sort of there's so much contestation, but also in there like just the culture and over that period of time, specifically in that 70s, at the end of all this violence, to come out the back of it and to just kind of like march on, which I guess is what a lot of the book is trying to get at, is just like, we've all collectively gone through this shit. but it's not going to help anyone by dwelling on this shit. So like everyone's trying to move on except for this one guy and these two people he meets, who are willing to kind of be like, yeah, I found like that relationship's really interesting with like the attorney, and it's like kind of like letting him in, doesn't really want to like open up this conversation, but is like, let's talk about it. And then he's a friend you need to meet. And the moment that they all meet and they start getting moving is when like the shit starts happening again.
Oh, that's what I wanted to say before as well. Like when it's the detective novel thing that like writers have, and a lot of people have as well, with like getting obsessed with something and wanting to find out the answer to it. This is again another phenomenon that is very common on the internet and on like social media now as well, because like so many people now, whenever there's like a true crime show or something like that, where like people don't know what happened, and usually in most of those shows it's not determined what actually happened. People go off like on Reddit especially, like it's the most Reddit thing to do is to try and solve like do your own investigation, quote unquote. And
really interesting.
yeah, so it's the same sort of thing. Like again, he's sort of prefiguring social media in a way, which a lot of people have talked about. Like,
yeah,
but in reference to the library, I guess. But I think more in reference to the narrator's like journey through like, I really need to know what happened, and I need to pursue this to the end, sort of thing, without any motivation other than needing to know.
Yeah. And that curiosity, like that, the library, like I found really interesting because it's like, I sort of see so many echoes of that in like efforts that people are trying to do now, which is like, got talked about as like, this is social media. You know, you put your secrets in the library and then other people read them and they send you back your secrets. And then when you find out the truth about each other, it leads you to conflict. And that's social media. But there was more to that, I think. I feel like that was like kind of almost like a shallow read, because we're so social media obsessed now. It's like the library was about, like its impetus was to be like, there was even a point where it was just like, oh, we don't want any like literary manuscripts in the library. This is purely like the citizens to put their diary entries in. And it's like no literary form, no like structure. It just has to be confessions. And they're really strict about that. And then you pay an extra fee to find out who wrote it, sort of thing.
Yeah.
Then you open up this line of communication. So yeah, like sure, like
you paid an extra fee to get verified.
Yeah.
Elon stole this idea.
It's Elon's library.
Yeah. No, but like there's a quote actually. I really think the social media stuff is a bit of a shallow read because it's so. I think it's that people are so social media addled that they immediately read that into it. But I will read a quote from it that sort of gives a suggestion of why people do this. So this is sort of towards the sort of start-ish where the library is being described. The typical patron of the library was a shy individual, ready to explore the limits of his own loneliness and to weigh others down with it. This only helped to seal him further in a vicious circle of fear and suspicion, which by long tradition have always hampered our citizens in broadening their horizons and communicating. Care for an example? Very well. Suppose that one Sunday morning a certain Mr. Rossi appears at the little house of Divine Providence to peruse a manuscript. Having read it, he asks those charming boys who had the idea of founding the library for the name and address of the author. They give it to him. And what does Mr. Rossi do now? He stands in the square near the house of the author, whom we'll call Mr. Bianchi, and waits, with the patience of a guard dog, for him to go outside. Mr. Bianchi steps out. Mr. Rossi follows him like a shadow, probably unaware that there's someone behind him doing the same thing, someone who's read his diary in the library. And so a web of mutual espionage came together piece by piece, malicious and futile. Social media.
Twitter.com.
X.com.
X.com. Yeah.
Yeah, that's why
It's irresistible. Yeah.
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 No, that's a great way. That's a great word, actually. Irresistible. It's an irresistible reading for like someone in 2023.
Yeah.
Definitely.
But it's such a like, yeah, which is really interesting because it's like so much of social media usage now, Twitter in particular, is like unpacking each other's shit and trying to like get shit on each other and kind of like communicate it without communicating it, like the subtweeter from which is
I also
ugly. It's like it's so ugly, but it's like everyone is driven by the same instinct. Everyone who hates some behavior in someone else tends to be enacting the same behavior as well.
yeah, but I do
Like
think
that passage.
I do think that people, when they're reading into the library as being this sort of like retroactive metaphor for social media, are looking at it from the point of view of what social media used to be. So social media used to be much more of a culture of confession, in the sense of like, you know, and I don't mean confession in the religious or like redemptive sense, but in the sense of like, all right, here's what I'm doing today. Here's my brunch. Remember that was like
a 2009.
Yeah,
it was great.
Yeah, it was great.
Everyone liked each other.
Yes. But that's the old times. That's like that's the old days. Like, that's not how social media works anymore. I say this all the time. But social media is just a reaction economy. So it's just like constant reactions to things and reactions to reactions to reactions, and on it goes. And it's not necessarily about sharing some like part of yourself, although that, you know, the self is very operative in social media, obviously, but it's more about not necessarily a performance of a self, but a self performance that is presented to others in order to get reactions, you know? Yeah. Whereas just like posting a brunch was like, yeah, you got to like, and yes, that's a reaction, but it's not the same affect as it is now. Like, it's so much more like kind of, it's ramped up. And so when people say, it's that old idea of like MySpace, the early Instagram, early Facebook, you know, that they're talking about when they say social media, because people have this outdated idea of what social media is now. Like, it's not
also,
that
and it's also like this, like I feel like the fiercest critics of social media are the people involved with like the worst tendencies of social media as well.
Mm-hmm.
It's like this weird loop. So they kind of like project it back to this idea of 15 years prior or something. And I think it was like one of the like the period, like in the book, the insomnia, I think they call it like a collective psychosis or something at some point.
X.com.
X.com. Yeah, I really liked that part of the book. It was just this like everyone was like gone loopy because everyone started getting involved in the library, and this library got a little bit too I think it was even like the points that they never quite figured out who ran the library, or they just never divulged, but it's like these smiling kids or something, which really reminds me of the like let's start a social center, and it'll be based around like confessional diary entries, and because we're trying to oppose literature and we're going to do something different and like really connect with people, and then the ugliness of people gets divulged and they don't know what to do with it. They're not prepared for that. Because some of the confessions in the book are like, there's like the illusion that there's like the old man who wants to sleep with a girl his granddaughter's age, and like that's his confession. And then there's like the which I found really funny. I don't think it's really meant to be played for laughs, but it's like the old woman who just wants a young man to like, she's constipated. It was the old man to like pull the shit out of her asshole. There's like, and then these like, boys obviously find it and start bullying her and start writing back these like cruel letters about the texture of her skin or whatever. And it's interesting. And then, so then at some point, the guy, like the narrator, Mr. I think it is even is Mr. like square brackets ... at some point. Like totally anonymized. But he tries to talk to someone in the shopping center about it, and she gets really like unsettled and like scurries out of the shop kind of thing.
Mm-hmm. Did you, as a zine person, I know you like zines and you've made zines. Did you empathize with the creators of the library who were like, no bindings, like just put it on foolscap?
Yeah, not in like, because like I've never like set rules for the zines that I read or whatever, but like, or that I would like make, but definitely in terms of like, this is like this pure form of writing in a way that I really enjoy. And like, whenever I turn to a zine, it's because I fall into this trap, which is like, maybe this is what I empathize with in that section of the book, was like, I'll fall into this trap of like submitting like essay pitches or short stories to literary journals, and they're getting like knocked back. And then I identify the motivation for it, and it's like, why am I doing this? It's like, I subscribe to this journal only so I can submit to it, and everything I read in it I don't like. So why? And I think like pretty much every writer in every country has this same, more or less the same issue. And it's like, just fucking print it.
Yeah. Just do it yourself.
Just do it.
You'd probably make more money.
Yeah. Well, you definitely won't make less.
Yeah. That's true.
Like, you can't make any less.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's like interesting, like, motivation for that part of the book. But I'm curious, like, what did you think about like how the library fit into the rest of the book? Because I felt like it was very unclear.
Yeah, I thought it was a bit disjointed. Like I was saying before, like it seemed like, well, actually the one point of connection I think there is, unless I'm getting timelines mixed up, I do think the escalation of, the entities roaming the town, does it coincide with the burning down of the library? Or is the library still in existence when all of this was happening?
I thought the library was closed at the start of the book.
Yeah.
And then he found the archive. But I feel like the entities were like brought back by his, like he got, it's like a real like classic conspiracy movie. Like the 70s. Been watching heaps of like 70s conspiracy movies, like 3 Days of the Condor.
Oh, they're so good.
It's fucking mad. Like, like when they get too close.
Yeah.
I love that. But like it happened when, so he goes to the archive of the library and he starts reading through the old folders and whatever. And then, it's that bit. It's really hard because like everything is so thinly alluded to, but that behavior that all the citizens of Turin start behaving in, where they start going, he notices people going through the bins. And then it turns out he goes through the bin and there's like confessional letters that they're recreating the library in these secretive ways, and they're kind of like putting their letters in the bins and journals in the bins. And then he gets the letter slipped under his door from some old guy who's stuck on like the 8th floor of this building that's filling with shit because the landlord won't fix the toilet.
Literally filling with shit.
Yeah.
They remove he write. That's actually really funny, that correspondence. Like he writes this letter where he's like, I've written this to many people before. no one's responded. And it's like they've removed the stairwell from the middle of this building so people can throw their shit and like rubbish down the middle of it. The smell would be. He didn't even mention what it would smell like. It would stink to high heaven. But but
it seems to be like the point where he replies to that guy, and they open up this correspondence, and then he starts fishing through the bins. And then he hears the tape of like the entities speaking to each other. And then, there's like figures watching him, or like figures watching each other with like
walkie-talkies.
Yeah, they got walkie-talkies. That's right. And that's when it kind of, he gets the thump at the door.
Oh, this is also like with the bins and everything. This also draws comparisons to like Thomas Pynchon, The Crying of Lot 49 a lot, I think. And I think it was published after Pynchon, but yeah, that whole like idea of like corresponding through like bins and like post boxes and stuff like that. And this secret like conspiracy. It's often like compared to Pynchon, Kafka, Lovecraft, and there was another one that was a big one too. Another horror writer, I think, maybe Poe or something like that. But yeah, so it's like, I don't know if these were influences on him, but like people have made those kind of connections.
Yeah, can definitely say that. And it's really that have you read that like essay, Mark Fisher essay collection, The Weird and the Eerie?
No, I haven't, but I've read a lot of people who have read it and
yeah. You don't need to read it. Like I went back to read it because like my friend Jono recommended it to me like a few years back, and it's really good. But like, I mean, the ideas are all there. It's just like defining what the weird and the eerie is via like Lovecraft and these sorts of people, and this is like really sitting that like just that uncanny space. Like everything is just like the thing is not meant to be there, but it is. That strangeness, that weirdness, and the eeriness, and it's in every element of the book, which I think is what makes it so disturbing. Like the library is strange. Like this guy's obsession with finding out what happened is strange. The citizens' disinterest in wanting to find out or to talk about it is weird and eerie, and then the entities are weird and eerie. Then you have monuments that are turning around, and then you have like all these other like little bits just kind of like building up to this like big eerie picture.
Yeah, I think that's the difference between this and a lot of more like straightforward horror, and why I find this a little bit more effective in terms. I don't really get that same visceral thing from like, you know, your Stephen King's or whatever. Like it's more that even Clive Barker, who I like, but with horror, it's almost like with commercial horror or whatever you want to call it, it kind of drains the eerie and the strange out of it because eventually it's explained.
Yeah.
So like these like torturers from another hell dimension, like that's the explanation. Or like for instance, like, oh, it's an alien that feeds off like negative emotions or something like that. And that, or what it does, it ends up like, I guess it's still scary from up until that point, but at the point at which you get that explanation, it kind of deflates it. Whereas this, because it doesn't really explain it in any sort of like, are these aliens? Are these like ancient primordial spirits? Are they projections of people's unconscious like negative emotions or whatever? Like that's never real. None of those theories are really given credence in the book, and that's what makes it much more effective in my view. Like it becomes, oh, what is this? Like, and you're left, what's going on? You know, that.
Oh, and it's so important, I think. Like, the explanation always ruins a like tale like that, you know, like it will never be satisfying. Like you can't possibly, the same with like, you know, like it feels a lot to me like conspiracy, like unproven conspiracy theories, which are like, you know, like maybe true or very close to the truth. Whenever like the documents get leaked and you find out the truth, it's just kind of like, it's so unsatisfying because it's always like a simple thing, you know?
Some of those though, it's unsatisfying because like the conspiracy theorists were right about it. Like,
exactly.
Like MK Ultra and like shit like that.
Basically, the government did tests on the citizens. It's like, I kind of knew that was going to happen.
Literally been proven to be true now, and so, but it's like everyone's like, whatever. And I feel like that is something that has something to do with like the reception to the alien stuff in the US. Like everyone's just sort of like, Like, no one really cares, like, because it's just like been ventilated so much through like conspiracy theory networks, but also that bleeds out into like the public in like movies and shit like that.
Yeah.
So everyone knows like it's not an alien, so to speak, concept for people to believe that the government or some segment of the government is covering up, I don't know, crashed like spacecraft or something like that. Like if that wasn't, and that then there's like the 5D chess conspiracy move, which is that they did that on purpose. They seeded that in popular culture so they could like pretend later on that aliens are real. Like that's where you get
Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's like that is like my favorite conspiracy theory, which is confirmed that the term conspiracy theory was fed from the CIA through the press to be like, we want you to talk about conspiracy theorists. Like, we want you to use this term whenever they talk about JFK assassination or something being like a bit off, call them conspiracy theorists. And then tie all doubt of like government conspiring amongst each other. Governments conspire. It's their role is to like plan things. It's like, go on conspiracy theorists. Now, every time that someone talks about conspiring, they're nut jobs. It's like, it's the best one because, it's like 6D chess.
Yes.
Like, well, you're a conspiracy theorist. Like, the conspiracies. And this book feels like so much like that. It's just like, he's trying to unravel the thing and he's getting closer and closer and closer and closer. And actually, I think my favorite part of the book is when I always get the attorney and the other guy mixed up. They're like the third party. They're like, whoever tells him is like, just go to Venice, get the fuck out of here a bit. Like things are getting a bit hairy. Like go have a holiday.
That's the attorney. Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. And he goes over there and then he goes and sees the marionette display.
Yes.
Which is fucking amazing. Like, and so creepy and weird because he's so relaxed because like he has the marionettes and there's the entities and the puppet routine is like playing out. They're picking up the people and they're whacking each other and they've kind of like played it for comedy and laughs. And like, I feel like the narrator is quite content in that moment because like in a way it's solved everything for him. It's like, oh yeah, like everyone knows what it is outside of Turin. It's only the Turinese who are just kind of like a little bit like too afraid to talk about it.
Yeah. That scene is another one that starts kind of ridiculous and then gets really terrifying.
Yeah. It feels so innocuous. Like, it's like really perfect writing for that part of the book too, because it comes really towards the end, right?
I think, speaking of the writing is amazing. It's, obviously it's in translation, but translation from Italian to English it's generally not, there's no big issues with it. Like, but in terms of like trying to translate untranslatable things, they're very similar, languages, but, the style it's interesting. It leans back to what we were talking about, in the last episode when I was talking about your style in Paradise Estate, that it's sort of like this, I didn't find it was like overly concerned with trying to impress me, like it was just like, but very, very impressive in the sense of conveying this dread in a kind of very no nonsense, no kind of like literary pyrotechnics way, that I found really impressive.
Because I feel like it really has a balance between, like, I like Stephen King's short stories a lot, but they're often like quite clunky and almost too simple sometimes. And you have to like, look, you read past it once you're in the story, you don't care because they're usually pretty compelling idea that's running it. Versus like the very like overly literary, bordering on long form poetry sentences, which you just like can't fucking get through because they're not saying anything. And I think he like sits in this really interesting space where it's like there's very few parts which are just sort of like bland. It's like the mug was on the counter. He picked up the mug and he like bashed her head with it. There's nothing like that. It's like, but it's still very like straightforward, and it's kind of, yeah, I was really surprised by it and like really impressed by it. It was like this really good balance between just saying ABC and saying something overly flowery.
And
That
then
connects with the mood.
and then the rest of it is just conversations, like
Yeah.
two people, like never more than two people in a room just talking, basically. But it's so compelling.
Yeah, true. Which is probably what makes it feel so
Claustrophobic.
yeah, and lonely too. Like he talks about loneliness a few times in there, and it's like that yeah, like he's never in a room of friends like palling around or anything. He's just like that's really interesting. He does only just talk to one person at a time.
Yeah, the one exception is that scene, I think, where he goes to the remnants of the library and there's two guards.
Yeah. And they're like confounded why he would give a shit. Like, why are you here?
Yeah. But yeah, generally it's just in terms of like long form conversations, it's just two people in a room. So yeah, and it really lends to that kind of such a close atmosphere. Even though presumably Turin is quite a big city, I would imagine. But
I think it's sort of like one of those cities, like a lot of those Italian big cities, they're big, but they sprawl so much. Like I never got the feeling of Turin being big. When I went to Milan, like that felt like big.
Yeah, it is a big city.
Yeah, and Rome obviously feels like quite big. Naples feels big because it's like so dense. But Turin was very quiet. Like I didn't really love Turin at all, and I was only there for like research for the book and just like a curiosity about like the history of the Fiat factory. I went to the Fiat factory and it fucking sucked. It was just a shopping center.
Oh yeah.
You know, like it's just like it was like a weird thing. It's but yeah, it wasn't what I imagined at all. So I can picture how this was 40 years ago, 50 years ago, I guess. 45.
When I was in Charlotte, I went to the NASCAR museum.
Yeah.
It was amazing. But we got in there really late, and so we had to rush through before closing. And it was like I was in a NASCAR. just like taking in all the kind of history and stuff. It was actually really interesting. But anyway, that's a random tangent, kind of related to Fiat, I guess. But
yeah. I had a stopover in Charlotte once.
What's that?
I had a stopover in Charlotte once.
Yeah. Did you have Bojangles?
I just ate something. Yeah. Anyway, there's a sidebar.
Bojangles is a really great North Carolinian, kind of burgers or like Southern food type fast food. It's really good.
Up there. We passed through anyway, sorry, I'm getting off track.
No, that's right. We always we always embrace the tangents. Anyway, yeah. What else do we have to say about this book?
What am I missing? I guess like there's a library, there's a sleuth type thing, there's these entities. Yeah, I guess the turn when the entities become more present in his life is quite interesting. It's like that first when he's with the attorney and the dog, and there's like the bang on the door, it's like this warning, and then he goes home to his apartment, and there's a bang on the door, and he opens the door, and there's like this. Was it like a bloodied hand or? Yeah, so that was the first time you really got a sense of the scope, because before that it was like Dutch or Austrian tourists or something in Turin, and that was the first eyewitness account in a newspaper. It was like this thing picked these people up by the legs, and that was first, but it sounded like kind of like bonkers on the first read through. And then it wasn't until you get to that point where it's like there's a bang at the door. He was too scared to answer in the morning, opens the door, and there's the hand that's the whole size of the door, and it's like the sense of the scale of these things.
And then like it escalates as well towards the end where like they get into the apartment and like bang on his bedroom door. That bit was scary.
I fucking hated that.
uh
Because I'm quite jumpy. Like I'm like pretty calm most of the time, but in the middle of like there was a night a couple of years ago where like a ball fell off a hall like a shelf in the hall in the middle of the night, and it like me and my partner were both fucking frightened, but like I was frightened for weeks about this fucking ball. It's like the moment a noise enters your like internal space. Yeah, I like that detail a lot. Like that extra layer in towards him, you know, like you're getting closer to the truth.
I've heard people like discuss this book in terms of the narration and how, you know, oh, it's hallucinations. It's like he's schizophrenic. It's, you know, some version of that as well. Like it's some kind of projection or whatever. There is actually a, I forget who it is, the thinker that the Giuffreda mentions. Bender was like an old, which is pretty funny last name, like an old psychoanalyst who's had this theory that like apparitions and hauntings and things like that are projections of like the unconscious, like, which is really interesting, like early 20th century spiritualists, like merging with like psychoanalysis. But so there's lots of theories about this in terms of like projection, and because it's from a first person, and first person is like, he is in some senses an unreliable narrator, but like not, I don't think in a way that is supposed to make you question anything that's happening. Like it's all real. Like stop with this, like this is all a fantasy like theory.
Because like there's no signs of that narrator. It would be so overly subtle as to be like uninteresting if this was all like a delusion. Because he's like quite with it. He's like quite methodical in his research, and he has like moments of reflexivity. Like there's some point where I can't really remember it, but he's like grappling with it, and he's like, maybe I just need to like essentially like relax and just go back to my day job and just like not think about these things, and like I'm being stupid. Oh yeah, because that thing where he's like trying to play the recorder or something. It's like a weird subplot, like he's no good at the recorder.
God, I want to pick him up by the legs and smash him against the wall if he started playing the recorder.
Yeah, like I feel like he's completely present with the moment. Like there's no individual psychosis. Like he's only exploring the collective psychosis of this time that people have went through historically. And it's written like so like all the way to the ending. Like I don't know if you want to talk about the ending.
Oh my God, the ending.
The fucking plane. Like it's so but like I loved, and this is why I feel like it's like very connected and very like lucid. The writing is like the last line in the book. He signs off with like October 1976. So it's like journalistic in that way, which is really like every fucking second book signs off like that now. But like that was like really, like I feel like I've read lots of autofiction stuff that ends with it signs off with the author's name, and it's like, was the character me after all? Unpack that, reviewer. But yeah, this book signs off with like October 1976. So it's like this. It's an account. Like it's an account of Turin of that time.
Lots of authors did that in like the 60s and 70s. I feel like Nabokov did that a lot. And so did there's another big American one who did that. Was it Cheever? Someone like that, I think, used to do that.
I'm like showing that I'm not very well read right now.
No. I don't think it's a very common thing. Like I didn't think it was a very common thing now, but apparently people are doing it in autofiction.
Maybe it's back.
Yeah. Well, I don't read autofiction, so I won't put myself through it. You want to talk about atmospheric dread?
Yeah.
But yeah, the ending. Okay, so the ending. We don't do spoiler warnings on this podcast, that I've said many times before. So you're going to hear the ending. Basically, he gets on a plane and people are waving him. That's the actual like scariest part to me. Is when people are waving to him, like people are waving at the passengers, and he's like, "Oh, people are waving," but then he realized that they're waving goodbye to him.
Yeah. And it was like, was it people from his past or just?
There was the nun, the creepy nun who he met earlier. There was the first woman he interviewed, which is the sister of one of the victims of the entities. What was her name? Signora Bergesio, I think her name was. And a couple of other like figures that was the eerie bit for me. Bye.
And it's right after his Venice trip, right? It's right after he sees the like marionette performance of which is like, you don't know that it's the reveal when you read it. It's like, oh, these puppets are like banging people against each other. And it's like almost, it's like this comedy. And then there's an earthquake.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. There's an earthquake in Venice and everyone like fucking freaks out and like, goes back home and he's kind of stuck in this other city. Then he gets on the plane, right? Is that the order?
I think so. I think the earthquake and the marionette was in Turin, wasn't it? And he's getting on the plane to Venice.
Can't remember. Maybe.
Yeah. So like, and then it's weird because he has a little nap and the flight to Venice is only 30 minutes. So like he has a little nap and then he wakes up and they're still flying. And then he notices they're flying over desert.
Yeah. Fucking
I'd be like, what the fuck?
Yeah. And everyone on the plane except him kind of seems to know what's happening.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like they're very like, like eyes down, like ready for their fate. Yeah, he seems to be the only person, which is kind of like interesting. I think I kind of fell out of the book a little bit then. Because like, it's like one of those moments in a book where it's like, how can you be the only person who's uncertain?
Yeah, I guess it's like these, everyone else is like some of those sleepwalkers. I guess. Or the insomniacs or whatever, who have been drained of their like vitality, as he explained earlier. But then he starts getting drained of his vitality as he kind of comes off the plane. So he starts realizing it as he like walks out to sort of meet his fate. And one thing, like this is a little like a detail that's probably not that important, but like because he's got his recorder with him. Is the implication that this entire narrative has been recorded via the recorder?
I didn't even think about that.
Like, so, but I don't know. Like, that was just something I thought about because I was just like,
I could see that. Yeah.
How else would the narrative work as well? This is getting very pedantic and like stupid.
Yeah.
But like, how else would the narrative work, especially if it was in first person past tense?
Yeah.
So he's telling you a story. So if he is dead, as it implies at the end, how is he telling this story? I mean, he could be telling the story from beyond the grave, but it also could be something that he's dictated, maybe. But that would take a long time before the the entity grabs in. So
I think there is like a bit of a there's a lot of things in the book that feel a little bit like mismatched. Like it took me to the second reading to see the connection between the library and the entity, which I think is pretty thin. But it's only that like the fact that he's exploring it has restarted the shit. But like that sort of ending, which normally I don't like, but I really liked it in this book because like they land on the plane and he comes out of the plane and everyone's lined up waiting. And that's the first time you actually get the scope and the size of these creatures.
Mm.
And they're ready to fight. And there's like lines of people on each side and they pick them up by the legs and they like scream at each other and then they start whacking each other with the people.
Mm.
And when the club is expended, they like clearly they pick up the next person and they're just going to fight. Normally I hate that kind of ending. Like I kind of want it to end on him in the plane. Everyone's weird and like you don't get the resolution.
Mm.
But I found that like resolution really cool because it still like has this like ... to it.
Yeah.
You know, like what happens then? Like they're going to keep doing that. And then, you know, maybe everyone goes back into a culture of silence and no one talks about the underlying kind of tensions between the people in Turin. And then someone's going to get curious and they're going to explore it. And then the entities will come back and sort of.
Yeah, well, it's almost like they've offshored it.
Yeah. It's outsourced. The ending is outsourced.
Yeah, but it's a really like, and also it's like in a desert somewhere. I'm assuming, you know, it doesn't need to be like exact where it is, but
yeah,
North Africa maybe like, but the idea is that the really ballsy thing about this is ending a horror novel, ending it in a very scary way in broad daylight in a desert.
Yes. Yeah.
The balls.
Yeah. Not in a dark alleyway.
No.
Yeah. Or in a facility like I think the fact like the absence of infrastructure is really interesting too.
Mm-hmm.
Because like on the conspiracy side of things, you end up in like a warehouse or a factory and you know, you have like the government is like sitting there. There's like a filing cabinet or something. Like it's just broad daylight, open desert. Violent acts are being committed. There's like I guess there's a hint of collusion between whoever runs the aeroplane and all those guys with walkie-talkies. Like there's some kind of hint towards like this is a managed thing, but it's not really like I don't think it's important.
Mm.
Like I think you know that like there's some kind of complicity between. There's some mediating force, you know.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But it doesn't matter.
Yeah, and then all the theories, both the attorney and the actually I think it's more the attorney who's like, oh, don't investigate who's actually behind it, all this, who's mediating this. That's where the conspiracy stuff like ramps up too. And you're left with that and you're not given any answers. But it's not unsatisfying. It's like very satisfying because it's so unsettling, and you're supposed to leave feeling unsettled.
Yeah.
And I recommend it because of that.
Yeah. It's just like purely for all the emotions that I felt and you felt reading it. Like, that's the recommendation.
Yeah. And I feel like there's a weird sort of catharsis you get with this sort of book because obviously you get catharsis with like normal horror, right? Where it's like you get the scares and the frills and spills and it's like a roller coaster, right? By the end of it, you're like, oh, I'm alive. Thank God. So it's like very life affirming, but this is like full on dread.
Yeah.
But it's like it still gives you a weird sort of catharsis. You put the book down and you walk away. I'm like, oh, I'm glad that's over.
And that's why like it's really multi-dimensional too. And I think I don't know how conscious he was of like this effect, but like you put the book down and walk away, just like everyone in the book did when they watched the whole city get clubbed to death and were insomniacs and then just like woke up the next day and went to work.
Yeah.
You have the same feeling that like the characters in the book felt.
Oh, I love that. That's perfect. I didn't even think about that. Yeah.
Oh, it's beautiful. Like, it's so cool. But that just, yeah, maybe that's just like us feeling that. But
Yeah.
it's
We
kind
feel
of looks like that.
we feel things, Max. We're
You and I,
yeah.
we're big little butterfly.
Yeah, what were you gonna say, sorry?
I can't remember.
But yeah, I think if you're into like horror, Lovecraft, Kafka, conspiracy shit, like this will be really up your alley.
Yeah,
That's like
and
most of my listeners, by the way.
yeah. I could say that from listening to your show for sure. Like I feel like most of your guests would enjoy it.
Yeah.
But also, it's like this really interesting thing about it being translated in 2017 and being sold as like Trumpist social media lone wolf terrorist thing. It's like it feels more relevant now than it did then.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like that was all like a bit of a distraction and a smokescreen. It's like we were like really now in this weird like feeling of like there's all these forces underneath us driving our behavior. We're participating in some way. We're complicit in some way, but we're also all very silent on issue XYZ.
We weaponize other people against each other.
Yes.
Like,
yeah. It's all kind of in there now. And it's like, I think you could pick that point in any decade. So I think it is really like quite a timeless horror novel. And it's like a real distraction to like make it an allegory about the internet or even an allegory about the Years of Lead, which I guess it was meant to be. But yeah, it's like it's a really special novel. I think it really like reaches through time.
Yeah, and it is a good example as well. We've kind of danced around this, but it's a good example of what's called weird fiction. Which I'll do at some point. I'll do more kind of books on that in that genre. If it even is a genre, it's more a feeling, really. It's not really a genre. But yeah, really great. I loved reading it, and I'm glad I found out about it because I knew nothing about it before you recommended to me. So
I'd never heard of it until my friend Jonah posted about it. And it's weird. It's like another friend of mine, Ben Muir, has written a paper about it.
Really?
I've tried not to read it yet. But yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing how he unpacks it.
Oh yeah. Also, by the way, I got the sense with this book that I didn't want to go in reading anything, and just because of its the way it was described to me, I was like, ooh, yeah. and I didn't even read the introduction, and I also didn't read any of the appendices, so I've just read the story and that's it. But I'll go and read those now after the episode.
Yeah, I think that's good. Like I read the book itself twice, and then went back through the introduction and the appendices. It's just like a kind of like a weird short story, which that weird thing when they like package everything together.
Yeah,
and then it was like an essay on some songwriters he was interested in. It was just kind of like, I really wish it was the novel.
I guess they try to make the price worth it. Maybe.
Yeah, they wanted to thicken the book up because it's such a small book, and I guess 2017 was really a time where like, I guess the idea of it selling a novella for $20 was deemed unmarketable or something too.
Yeah. Do you do that as well? Because I feel like I'm the only person who never reads any of the paratextual stuff, the introductions or anything else. Like
I go straight to the book itself.
Me too. And
if I'm really curious, I'll read the other stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's the only way to do it.
Introductions.
Yeah.
This book you're about to read is about this.
Yeah.
And if you think differently, well, you're a fucking idiot. Thanks, man. Like I really want I'm just here to read the thing.
Yeah. But Max will, of course, write introductions if he's asked.
Yeah.
All right. Do we have anything more to say about this book?
I think we've done a pretty good.
We have.
We've covered every part.
I don't know that we've made many connections with your book, but there are some, I feel like. Turin.
Yeah, that appears.
Social media.
Social media appears. I don't think there's many connections there. But
The ideology idea might be like a connection there. Like, I feel like that's something that could be explored further if people wish to.
Yeah, maybe the underlying. But yeah, there's no like entities clubbing each other to death.
Yeah, just not like literally, maybe metaphorically.
Distractions, yeah.
Yeah. All right, brilliant. Thanks for joining me, Max, for this two-parter. This was wonderful, and thank you for recommending this book to me.
Thanks, Matt. Thanks for talking shit with me while I'm like kind of high and drunk.
always willing to talk shit with you. Cheers. Thank you.
See you, Matt.
Per ogni divieto che ha dato il buon Dio, col nome ben noto di comandamento, la gente ha creduto che fosse assai pio, crearne e redigerne almeno altri 100. Vietato il sorpasso, vietato fumare, e per non esporre le nostre sporcizie, in certi locali è vietato sputare, in altri lo scarico delle immondizie. Ma tutte queste cose non sono molto gravi, son lievi precauzioni per farci star più bravi. Il guaio è che quei tipi che vietano e fan storie, le cose non vietate le han rese obbligatorie. Son molti cartelli che trovi per strada, vietato il passaggio, divieto di sosta, e in molti negozi, dovunque tu vada, vietato toccare la merce che è esposta, e per evitare ai giovani i danni che può provocare il problema del sesso a tutti i minori di 16 anni, in certi locali è vietato l'ingresso. Ma tutte queste cose non sono molto gravi, son lievi precauzioni per farci star più bravi. Il guaio è che quei tipi che vietano e fan storie, le cose non vietate le han rese obbligatorie. Il senso è vietato, vietato affacciarsi, divieto di transito ai ciclomotori, vietato il posteggio, vietato bagnarsi, vietato parlare coi manovratori. Fra tanti divieti di tutti i modelli, la legge non vieta, un po' stranamente, di andare ad uccidere i nostri fratelli, di andare a far guerra alla povera gente, che anzi ci costringe in termini palesi ad imparare ste cose per un bel po' di mesi, e quel comandamento lo ha lasciato stare, che dice chiaramente è vietato ammazzare.